Hi, it's me. So, we're getting through January with some very unusual weather. It's been very warm. We did have one pretty good snow, but it's been pretty warm. So I'm grateful for that. It's been an unusual January again. So, we're still working on the fruit, the 9 parts of the fruit of the Spirit. We're trying to wrap them up. Today we're going to be talking about goodness. Oh, goodness. Jesus wants us to do good to everyone. We've been talking about Galatians 5, 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. And against such there is no law. So today we're going to be talking about goodness. In Luke 6, 27 through 28, it says, "But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who spitefully use you." That's a lot, isn't it? It is for me. Doing goodness to someone who does good to you is not pure goodness. Let me read that again. Doing goodness to someone who does good to you is not pure goodness. That's just two people exchanging favors. Doing goodness to someone who doesn't deserve it, that's coming from the purity of our hearts. We must do good and show goodness to everyone. Galatians 6, 9 through 10 talks about not growing weary while we do good. For in due season we shall reap if we don't lose heart. We should do good to all. Let's go back to that first part. It says, don't grow weary when we do good. How many of you have ever had someone that it's a bittersweet relationship, and you continuously try to do good to them, and they continuously either turn your goodness down or continuously do hurtful things to you? And you're trying to be a good Christian and show goodness to them, and it is taxing on you, and you grow weary. I've been through this more times than I can count. We must be sincere in our efforts to show goodness to others. It can't be fake. It can't be for a show, and it can't be for others to notice us. We have to do it out of the goodness of our hearts, because that's what Christ asks us to do. I get so tongue-tied on my words sometimes. Don't pretend to show goodness. That would be a hypocrite, wouldn't it? And we can't hide anything from God. So I don't want to be a hypocrite, and I'm sure you don't. So if we show goodness, let it come from the goodness of our heart. And if we don't know how to show goodness to somebody, then ask God to teach us how to show goodness to others, especially the ones that don't deserve it. Man looks on the outward appearance, but you know what God looks at? He looks at our heart. I might see you for who you are on the outside, unless I know you really well, and then I can see where your heart is. But God always sees us from our heart. We need to keep our minds clean and guard it. We can't allow ourselves to look at or listen to anything immoral that might compromise our conscience. I don't have television streaming into my home. I do have the internet. I still have to be mindful of that. But back in like 2011, I just decided that I didn't want cable or satellite coming into my home, because there was just nothing but garbage. And I didn't want that garbage filtering through my mind. So I guess it's been almost 12 years now. I haven't had television, and honestly, I stay so busy, I don't know when I would have time to ever watch it. Plus, I hear from others who have television, there's nothing on it. It's just pure garbage. So we have to guard our hearts by protecting our eyes and our ears and what they see and hear. Pure hearts require right motives. Doing good deeds to impress others won't bring a reward from God. He sees our true nature of our heart and knows our true motives. Paul said that if he did good works without love, it profits him nothing. Paul said if he did good works without love from his heart, then he doesn't profit anything. He doesn't gain, he doesn't score any points with God. So what's the point, right? Because everything we should do should be for the glory of God. Have you ever noticed today how evil is being called good and good is being called evil? Even in just these past several years in this country, because everything's just flip-flopped around. What is wrong is now considered right, and if you call them out on that, then you are an offender. So I'm just an offender of faith. That might be my new belief standard. I'm an offender of, well, that didn't even make sense. What I meant to say was that on behalf of my faith, I look as though I am an offender because I don't go with the crowd. I don't go along with what everybody else is doing. We must put on the full armor of God, and we must be aware of false teachers and stay away from them. I know a lot of times through the internet and television, there's a lot of false prophets out there that have a very large flock, and they're leading them straight to hell, to be honest with you, and they're sure not bringing them closer to God. It's all for profit and fame and fortune, unfortunately. One of our greatest enemies is ourselves. It's not a world of, this world has become a world of if it feels good, do it. That's false. We don't need to tell that lie to ourselves. If it feels wrong, it is wrong. Paul said, walk in the Spirit, and we won't fulfill the lusts of the flesh. In 2 Corinthians 10:4-5, it says, bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. The Bible encourages us to be full of goodness, and that's our topic for today, is goodness. Ever heard the term, life is good? You know those t-shirts, life is good? I think I've got some. What does that look like to you when you hear the word life is good? Is it only good when you get your own way? Is it good if you have a brand new fancy car or truck, the largest house in the block, if you have the highest promotion or the highest position in your job and it's bringing you extreme wealth? Is that what life is good looks like to you? It can be if we use it appropriately, especially if we can pay for the things that we've accumulated in our life. If you live a life close to God with all this, with all His great benefits, would you consider that a good life? Let me ask that one more time. If you live a life close to God with all His great benefits, would you consider that a good life? What do we think about when we hear the words good or goodness? Psalms 52:1 says, the goodness of God endures continually. I wish mine did. Mine's from moment to moment and day to day sometimes, but I strive to be good, and I strive to show goodness to others, especially the ones that don't deserve it. God wants us to demonstrate goodness and grow in goodness so we can be like Him. Our goodness should be something that others can be thankful for, just as we should be thankful for the awesome goodness that God has shown towards us. He's shown an abundance of goodness, mercy, and grace towards me, and I am confident that He has shown that same grace and goodness and mercy towards you. Our goodness should be something that others can be thankful for, just as we should be thankful for the awesome goodness that God has shown towards us. I just read that. I am like in the dark under a light and I don't have my glasses on. Well, anyways, I guess we got that point. Do you know why God wants us to show goodness? Because it's good for us and it's good for all those that are around us. He wants us to be good, and we should naturally want to be good. Goodness is something that we have to learn. Trial and error. In, I believe, 2nd Chronicles, and I don't remember the exact chapter, and I can get it back to you. Probably in 19 through maybe 20 something, and then maybe 14 through something, there's 2 old kings. They were good kings. One's name was Hezekiah, and the other one's name was Josiah. Boy, when they got their tenure as king, they sure had to come in and clean up a lot of mess that was done before them. There was a lot of pagan worship and pagan practices. There was a lot of evil. They even quit celebrating the Passover before these 2 guys came in to reign and rule. And so when Hezekiah and Josiah, at different times throughout history, came in, I think it was Hezekiah possibly first. Don't quote me on this. And then 2 other bad kings came in, and then Josiah had to come in and clean up the mess from the 2 kings that were horrible before. Hezekiah and Josiah ended up cleaning the temples from all the contempt and wickedness in it, and restored the true worship of God, keeping the Passover, and ridding the land of pagan influences. When Josiah came in, he followed 2 wicked kings who destroyed the good that Hezekiah had done. And he rid the land of pagan practices as well, and also brought back in the celebration of the Passover, and brought back in the books of the law, which are the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and enforced them and lived by them. So they restored the temple and kept the festival of Passover. They showed goodness just like we should by clinging to God's standards. Pray for discernment to understand the difference between the 2 worlds I'm going to say that one more time. Pray for discernment to understand the difference between the world's twisted version of goodness and the true goodness that comes from God. Allow God to cultivate in your life the good and the fruit of goodness. Living a life closer to God with all the great benefits He has is truly the good gift of life and the goodness of God. And there's nothing better than the goodness of God. So as we are nearing the end of our journey into the 9 parts of the fruit of the Spirit, I hope that you can cultivate goodness in your life, not just to those that deserve it, but especially to the ones that don't deserve it. And to let God's love be seen through you by implementing God's goodness through you. And if you don't know what that means, pray about it. Ask God. Search the scriptures. Talk to a pastor or a mentor in the faith, and let them help guide you and cultivate that goodness. This is not something that has come easy in my life, and I have to practice this often, sometimes daily, sometimes several times in a day, because we get tried and tested, and goodness isn't shown oftentimes. So let's all be good to each other and show goodness. Let's forgive one another as Christ has forgiven us. Okay, we are almost done with this series. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video. If you have any comments, please like and share. And my dogs, they bark at everything. If a leaf falls, they bark. And that's pretty frustrating. At like, say, 4 o'clock in the morning this morning, the coyotes were across the street over there. Man, my dogs were just at it all night. So I'm pretty sleepy, but I'm going to get some rest. You guys have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Hugs and love. Bye for now.